Greetings. My name is Mary Yorbra, and for the next few minutes, I just want to share with you some of my thoughts and observations on Larry Hurtado's book, Destroyer of the Gods: Early Christian Distinctiveness in the Roman World. Just sort of as an introductory comment, I found this book really interesting, a really interesting read, really interesting perspective, one that I had not considered before. Going into the book initially, finding the author's description of Christianity as odd or bizarre was a little shocking, at least initially, because obviously I didn't really know where the author was going to go with that idea. Through the progression of the book, through the progression of the areas in which he focused on, obviously that idea, that thesis, came to make a great deal of sense. Obviously, as he was trying to establish just how Christianity was viewed during the first, second, and third centuries within the context of the Roman Empire, comparing how Christianity actually was, or how it functioned, and how it was viewed within social circles, religious groups, and just in a certain sense, placing the reader in the proverbial shoes of someone looking at Christianity from the outside in, and trying to help us really understand what those perspectives were at the particular point in time in which Christianity emerged. I'm going to focus on the introductory chapter as well as the first chapter, because they sort of go together as far as what they present, as far as what they depict concerning the uniqueness of Christianity, and all that led to the perception of so many within the Roman world that Christianity was, in fact, according to the author, odd, bizarre, in some ways even dangerous. There were obviously a lot of factors that led to this perception, and those are the factors that the author examines throughout the volume of work that he presents. I found that the author was trying to set some parameters for the reader, parameters in which to then consider the birth and the early expansion of Christianity. An expansion that we know was very large, was very far-reaching, growth that led to the future of the church, but it was growth that was the result, in some places, it was the result of not just ridicule, but outright persecution of the faithful. And one of the things that I found very interesting was that this very level of ridicule, this very level of persecution, which we know to be historically accurate, was the foundation upon which so many of the early believers, specifically within the second and third century, they came to develop what we would call their apologetic skills. And it was these skills that then we come to see later on in the overwhelming amount of Christian literature that was important at that point in time in history, but has continued to mark the history of the Christian church even today. Hurtado takes time to place emphasis on the writings of several key historical figures. We have the writings of Pliny that are mentioned, Galen, Lucian. What I sensed was that the author was trying to extract some of what we can learn about the earliest perceptions of Christianity as they were recorded in these writings. And what we find is obviously a very negative perspective of Christianity. In one case, signaling Christianity as a deadly superstition, leading to obviously this idea that Christianity was a threat to society, it was a threat to the empire as a whole, and in turn leading to this idea that Christianity was actually such a threat that it could be viewed as a criminal organization, leading to this idea that Christians themselves were focused on the destruction of ideas, ideals, and even people, and we know that these false ideas led to so much of the abuse, the ridicule, and even the death of so many of the faithful followers of Christ of this particular period of church history. This particular point for me was particularly interesting because of all the distinguishing characteristics that the author used to highlight the uniqueness or the perception of uniqueness of Christianity during the first, second, and third centuries. Personally, I felt like there was a chapter almost missing between the first and the second chapters of the book, and that missing chapter for me was a focus on the unique Christian response to the persecution that they experienced as a result of being perceived as odd, bizarre, and in some cases even detrimental to society as a whole. We know that so many faithful Christians, not just in the first, second, and third centuries, but throughout church history, their response to persecution, it's a unique response. We can look at other ancient religions, and we find people, yes, being tortured, being sacrificed even, but we don't find people being willing to give their lives for their religious beliefs. And that is something that we find as very, very unique within Christianity. It's something that has marked the history of the church. It's something that has marked the missionary movement of the church, and even today marks Christianity as unique. We know that in certain places around the world today, there are Christian brothers and sisters who are suffering for the cause of Christ, faithful followers of the Lord who have lost their lives, their earthly life, in defense of the faith. And I find that to be a particular characteristic of Christianity that has and continues to mark the Christian faith as unique. And so I thoroughly enjoyed the book as a whole. I thoroughly enjoyed chapter 1 in particular because I felt like it established the framework upon which that conversation could continue to that next point of viewing the uniqueness of the Christian faith in response to the persecution that the church has experienced, and in particular the brutality of the level of persecution that the early church experienced. However, with all of that said, I would certainly recommend the book. I would even consider going back and reading certain sections of the book again, because we see that the author has really attempted to provide us as readers with a context within which we could place ourselves in the shoes of a first or a second century Roman, really observing and attempting to rationalize and even understand Christianity. He attempted to provide, obviously, a condensed historical overview of the early Christian movement. It was very well structured, especially given the end goal of highlighting this distinctive nature of Christianity as compared to the other religions that we know that existed at this point in time. So thoroughly enjoyed the book, would recommend the book, and would have just enjoyed a little bit more of emphasis on the unique response of the early Christians to the intense persecution that they experienced. Thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it added to the conversation, and I look forward to interacting with your observations and your comments as you've posted your videos as well. Blessings, and I look forward to interacting with you in the discussion boards.